What is up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the top 5 best old budget flagship smartphones. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so my first in favor is the LG V40. So this guy comes in at around 230 right now, renewed, 300, brand new on Amazon. All links will be down below. And I absolutely love this phone. It got the Android 10 update this year, and it breathed a lot of life into the phone. I have reviews and videos on all of these phones that you're seeing, so be sure to check them out. And you have an aluminum design, glass back, a very nice premium feeling design. On here, it is IP68 dust and water resistant as well, so you can't get this guy wet. This has the P OLED display. It's a 6.4 inch display, 1440p, 537 for the PPI. Absolutely beautiful display. You have the notch up top. This gives off some very vibrant colors, and it's a fairly bright display as well. I just absolutely love how high the PPI is and just how crystal clear the display looks. One of my favorite things about the phone. So like I said, you're running Android 10, basically a stock version of Android on here, which is very fast with the Snapdragon 845 and Adreno 630. You can definitely do gaming on here. I have a gaming test. You can pretty much play anything on high still with this 845 processor. You also have micro SD support and 64 gigs of internal storage along with 6 gigs of RAM, which is really awesome. You also have a 3.5mm jack with the quad DAC, which is really nice. NFC is on board as well. This phone does have a triple camera setup, so you have a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. You have 4K video, 30 or 60 FPS, along with a dual camera setup, an 8 megapixel standard and a 5 megapixel wide for group selfies. As you can see, the photos on here are excellent. So the photos and the camera itself just has aged very well, which is something that I really love. Color accuracy is great, dynamic range is awesome. You can also port Gcam onto this as well. Now you have a really fast fingerprint scanner, which is on the back. Like I said, very fast. You have a 3,300 milliamp battery with 18-watt fast charging and wireless charging. So battery life is around 7 hours and 30 minutes. So it definitely can get you through the day, no problem. So, and just an awesome pick. All right, the next phone is the OnePlus 6T. You can find this phone for around 300 bucks. This is again a very nice phone. So you have an aluminum frame, a glass back, very thin phone as well, and it just feels really great in the hand. You have some really good color choices as well with this phone. So you do have an AMOLED display on here. It's a 6.4 inch display. It is 1080p 402 for the PPI. A pretty decent display. You have the little water drop notch as well. This phone does not have any kind of IP rating though, so do note that. So you do have Android 10 with the latest version of Oxygen OS, which is definitely a highlight with this phone. If you've never tried it, it's one of my favorite skins on Android. It's just very fast, highly customizable, and you also get a lot of security patches, and they're really good at pushing updates. So that would be like one of the main highlights with this phone. So you do have the Snapdragon 845 and Adreno 630. Again, like the LG V40, you will be able to play games on high settings, no problem at all. So you do not have micro SD support, which kind of sucks, but you do have 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM, which is fine. You do not have a 3.5mm jack as well, so you're going to be stuck with wireless headphones. So do note that, which I've made the transition and it's not that bad, but if you're serious about audio, then you're going to be looking at one of the LG phones. So you do have NFC on board as well, and now you do have a dual camera setup on here, which is really good. A 16 megapixel and 20 megapixel camera, and you have 4K 30 or 60 FPS with a selfie camera that's 16 megapixels. As you can see from the photos, you get some really nice detailed and crisp photos on here. Color accuracy reminds me of Samsung, so they go for that really punchy color look, which looks perfectly fine on this phone. So the cameras have aged really well on here. You do have NFC on board for your mobile payments, and like I said, one of my favorite things about this phone is the under display fingerprint sensor. That is very fun to play with at this price point. You do have a 3,700 milliamp battery with 20-watt fast charging, and that is really awesome. The battery life on here is excellent, so you're definitely getting around 8 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time, no problem. So if you're into the OnePlus and you just love the software, then this is definitely an excellent buy. Next is going to be the iPhone 8. So the iPhone 8 has been really exceptional since I started using it. It's just super solid in 2020. So you do have an aluminum frame, a glass back on here, and on the front it has age, but the SC 2020 this year looks, pretty much identical. So most people don't really care at this point. So you do have IP67 water and dust resistant rating on here, which is really nice. You do have an IPS display that is 4.7 inches. It's a 720p plus 326 for the PPI. One of the things I like about it does get fairly bright. Now, the awesome thing about this phone is it's running the latest version of iOS 13, and this will get 14, and I'm assuming it should get iOS 15, if not 16, the way that this guy performs with the Apple A11 chip. You can pretty much do anything on here, gaming at high settings, launching applications, just scrolling, multitasking is really excellent on here. Now, this phone only has 2 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of internal storage, so there's no expandable storage, so if that bothers you, definitely look at some of the other options. But this is just a super solid phone. So you have NFC as well. Now you only have a 12 megapixel sensor, but it does shoot 4K video as well as a 7 megapixel selfie. This is definitely acceptable. The cameras on here have aged pretty well. You get some pretty good punchy colors on here. Dynamic range is pretty good. You get a lot of details, so this is definitely still a super solid camera. Definitely really good for FaceTime and stuff like that. You do have stereo speakers, which are pretty decently loud, not super loud, but it is decently loud, louder than the 7. So you do have a 1821 milliamp battery with 15-watt fast charging with wireless charging. This phone usually will last around 6 hours and 30 minutes, so it's not a phone that's gonna really give you a whole bunch of juice depending on how you use it. You could even get like 5 hours and 30 minutes if you're hardcore gaming, but yeah, so do know that you're going to be charging this phone. Does not have a massive battery. Next is one of the cheaper options on the list, the LG G7. So you can find this for around 200 bucks and sometimes even lower depending on the day, but this is an awesome phone. It's basically like the LG V40 minus the cameras. So let's go ahead and get into this one. This has a really nice feel to it. One of my favorite things about this phone is just how it feels in the hand. You have an aluminum frame and a glass back on here. It's IP68, dust and water resistant, and like I said, the hardware is really nice on here. You have a 6.1 inch display. It is an IPS display, so I guess one of the advantages with IPS is that you don't have to worry about screen burns like on an AMOLED or OLED. So you do have a 1440p resolution, 564 for the PPI. Just a beautiful display, very high res, very crisp and clear. One of my favorite things about this display, it is a notch display, but you can't hide the notch, so it's not a big deal. The big deal with this phone is it got the Android 10 update. I made a whole video about it. It just brought a whole bunch of life to this phone. It is blazing fast and just super smooth, and with those new features, it just is an awesome experience now. So you have the 845, Snapdragon 845 and Adreno 630. Again, this is a very capable phone when it comes to gaming. If you haven't seen my tests, be sure to check them out. You can do high gaming on this phone, Fortnite, PUBG, whatever. So please do check that out. You have micro SD support as well as 64 gigs of storage and 4 gigs of RAM. This phone also has one of the best speakers. It's a single firing speaker, extremely loud and very high quality speaker, which is something that I love. It's called the LG Boombox speaker. It definitely lives up to the name here. You also have NFC on this guy as well as some fairly solid cameras. If you install Gcam on here, it takes the camera game up a whole another level. So you have a 16 megapixel standard and a 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K video, 8 megapixel selfie. As you can see from these photos, breathtaking. It looks like, newer phones that came out today. It's really nice, especially with that Gcam on here. So the fingerprint scanner on the back, again, very fast, a physical one. You also have respectable battery life, 3000 milliamp battery, 18-watt fast charging along with wireless charging. So you get around 6 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time, if not 7, depending on how hard you use it. So you can definitely get through the day with this phone, no problem. Last is the Galaxy S9. So this phone did another big dip in their refurbished space, coming down to around 250 now. So I think this is a super solid phone in 2020 still. So you have an aluminum frame, glass back on here, IP68, dust and water resistant. I think the design still looks pretty good for today. It definitely feels really nice in the hand. It's kind of a more compact compact phone nowadays. So you do have a beautiful Super AMOLED display. It's a 5.8 inch 1440p 570 for the PPI. Absolutely beautiful, crystal clear display here. So you do have the Android 10 update with this guy with One UI 2.1, which is great. So I really love that Samsung kept supporting this device. And again, same story. You have the Snapdragon 845 and Adreno 630 on here. So if you want to game on here, you will be able to game on high. Now, this is one of the hotter phones, which is one of the things I noticed. So this phone does get kind of hot. So do note that if you're going to be gaming, you might want to get a case. So you do have micro SD support as well as 64 gigs of internal storage and 4 gigs of RAM. I found the phone relatively smooth, just scrolling and multitasking, watching videos. I had no real performance issues here. So you do have some pretty loud speakers on here. You have stereo speakers, which is really nice. Your 3.5mm jack is here, as well as NFC is on board. Now you have Samsung's fingerprint scanner, which is very fast, and their iris scanner, which kind of works, but it's it kind of works. But this one does have the Samsung Dex support on here, so the desktop experience, which is really cool. So you can turn this into like a mini desktop, which is awesome. You also have respectable battery life on here, 3000 milliamp battery with 15 watt fast charging and wireless charging. You have a very good camera on here, 12 megapixel wide with 4K video, and you also have a dual camera up front, which is really the iris scanner, but it's an 8 megapixel selfie, shoots in 1440p for the front. Overall, as you can see from the images, still a very nice high quality camera on here, great dynamic range, color, everything is really nice on here. So this is also a very nice pick for Samsung fans. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.